what are the red flags I need to be looking out for? If I'm trying to get married now and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I have childhood trauma, what do I need to look out for in myself first? And then my partner, what do I need to look out for if I'm like, okay, this person is a narcissist? What are those red flags that would kind of sound off to me? Because most times we don't see the red flags.
Yeah, you're correct.
Welcome again to another episode of the When I Wanted Out talk show. I'm still your host, Teleola Kola-Edun. Thank you for joining us on this particular episode. And I do hope that you've been learning a lot from what we've been putting out every week. Now, on this week's episode, we're discussing a topic titled How Narcissism and Childhood Trauma Plays Out in Marriages. Now, to discuss and unpack this topic with us is an expert known as Mrs. Olabisi Usidame. She's a visionary and a compassionate trailblazer dedicated to the fields of education, mental health, and family well-being. With a multifaceted background in education, mental health coaching, counseling, and trauma therapy, Mrs. Olabisi's journey is an inspiring testament to her commitment to fostering positive change in individuals' lives and communities. Having triumphed over her own experiences of multiple traumas, Mrs. Olabisi's mission is to guide others to their path of healing. She holds international certifications as a mental health coach, a counselor, and a trauma therapist, enabling her to provide valuable support and treatment to those who have endured trauma. Mrs. Olabisi is dedicated to empowering individuals to become positive contributors to society, facilitating healing and resilience. Please help me welcome Mrs. Olabisi Usidame. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much, Tele, for this opportunity.
I'm very, very grateful. I am so grateful. And even to talk about a topic that a lot of people are actually facing and suffering and managing, grinning and bearing.
That's right.
I noticed over the course of the show, when I drop things, I find that I get a lot of comments on, oh, narcissist, this is a narcissist, there's a lot of gaslighting, there's a lot of manipulation. And I felt that this was a topic that people knew about but didn't fully understand. So I wanted us to just talk a little bit on the topic of narcissists. Who are they? If you could give us examples, then how childhood trauma also plays out so that we understand fully how these two merge or either conflict, in terms of marriage.
Okay, all right. So thank you for that. All right, so the word narcissism, it's everywhere.
Yes.
It's the buzzword now.
Yes.
And I think it owes to the fact that quite a few of us find ourselves in a relationship with someone who we don't totally understand, who we find is just doing things that are not expected for two people who are committed in a relationship, whether it's a work relationship or a personal, intimate relationship. And so, people are termed having the disorder. Now, the truth is everyone has some level of narcissism in them.
Well, we wouldn't have assumed it.
That's the truth, but where the challenge is the fact that when it becomes really extreme, and it's a daily, continuous thing. It's almost like an obsession with this person. Then you have that knowledge that, okay, you know what? I might be dealing with someone who has this NPD, which is a narcissism personality disorder. So who are they, you ask me, right?
Yes.
So with them, they are people who constantly seek validation. They seek attention. They are they feel very important. Let me put it that way. And that drives them. the feeling, the very extreme feeling of self-importance, the very deep feeling and yearning for attention, an appreciation for all of their achievements is what drives them.
So they want you to worship the ground that they walk on.
Literally, like you have to keep feeding them. It's almost like an obsession. It's who they are, and you have to keep supplying it. And that's not just where the problem is when it comes to relationship.
So when you say supplying it, what are these? What is the non-narcissistic partner supply?
Oh, so they love to be doted over, like you're showing them a lot of empathy. They love empathy, like, every little thing. Oh, they just like that affirmation, constant need for affirmation, constant need, so you're showing them a lot of empathy. You're saying the right things to them. You're admiring them and their achievements, and that just keeps them afloat,
Okay.
And why it has become a buzzword is because people are finding themselves in a relationship with a person who seems to constantly wants to ensure that the attention is on them. So even when there is a real issue, they can't see it because they don't have empathy. They naturally don't possess the gift of empathy. So when you're falling off a staircase, what you would expect from someone who in an intimate relationship with is, are you okay? Do you need some help? Do you want me to help you? But with them, it's the other way around. They're like, oh my goodness, how are people going to see me here right now? Like, why is she embarrassing me? Why can't she just put herself together? Why are you just being so clumsy?
It's never about...
It's not about the other person. So it's never about the other person. And so it's not intentional, but they don't see anybody else but them. You see, you have animations that show, I don't want to say Johnny Bravo, but I don't know if you remember Johnny Bravo, that who goes, like, he looks at himself in the mirror. It's always about him, That's what we're talking about. And so it ruins the relationship, especially if the person could be a male, could be a female, could be a parent, could be a boss. But what typically would happen is, for every relationship, there has to be connection on all fronts, emotionally, mentally, physically. And when a person is constantly depleting your emotional strength and is placing a lot of, a lot of stress and strain on your mental health, then the relationship over time would suffer and something has to happen. It's either they go their separate ways or one person ends up being, a doormat or becomes a shadow of their former self.
So how is it that a narcissist ends up, let's just say in this case, the narcissist is the guy. We do know that there are women that are narcissists. So how is it that a narcissist ends up with someone that we would look at as such a sweet person? Where does that connection come? Why do they go after this person that looks so docile, so meek? If I could say the word. Yeah.
Those words are perfect. Those words are perfect because most times their partner is usually docile. And by docility, we just mean someone who adapts, who can adapt to stress, adapt to any level of attention given to them. If they have a lot of love, they're happy. If they don't have a lot of love, they adapt, they survive, So the thing is, quite frankly, we have people, and I have to be honest with you there, those of you watching me here. I know it's something you have never heard, but the truth is, a lot of times, narcissists end up with people who have experienced childhood trauma. There, I said it.
Yeah.
Look, the thing is, childhood trauma does not leave us the same. Childhood trauma varies. It could be experiencing domestic abuse. It could be physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse. It could be experiencing the death of someone very close to you. It could be you changing schools so often. It's so stressful. You cannot manage all of the emotions and you dissociate. Or you find a way to respond to the stress. We all respond in different ways. Some people would respond by fighting, some will respond by freezing, by fawning. But whatever it is, a lot of times the emotions are not processed. They're not identified, they're not processed properly. And so what would happen is people live with that trauma and have developed unhealthy coping skills to managing the stress. Now, this is where I'm going to. A lot of times you would come across people, especially, now we're using the example of a male and a female,
Right.
of females who grew up in a home where there was just a lot of distress, for example, the parents are not on agreeable terms. And what would typically happen is, such is very typical for children wanting to manage a situation, take on a role that's not theirs. They take on the role of a parent to their siblings, wanting to be there to support them, wanting to, and so they find themselves taking on a role they should not be taking on at that particular age. They're trying to keep peace, make peace. You know what, that is going to come in any minute from now, drunk, and is going to try and beat us up or beat mommy up. Let's tidy up the house.
So
let's do everything. They are walking on eggshells.
Yeah, already.
So they develop a coping skill of being there, of pleasing, of adapting, just for the sake of peace.
Right.
And because they do that, they don't put themselves first, naturally. And when you don't put yourself first, you tend to always be ever pleasing to the other person. They're usually the ones who are very generous with compliments. Oh, you look so good. You're so amazing. Oh, I love how you do. You're so brilliant. And unknowingly, they become the target. They become the supply.
Oh, right. For the narcissist.
Exactly.
ego.
Because it needs that constant. So when you're constantly giving them that, they're like, oh, so that's what they find attractive in you. Yes, I mean, aside the fact that you look good, you look very nice and sweet, you look very sexy, you're just the right person to be with. Yeah, apart from all of that, they like the fact that you're there to feed them, which is why a lot of times you'll find the cases of people who have narcissist partners not working, not doing anything, because the attention has to be about them. They find a way to make you feel bad about yourself, not intentionally, but that's who they are. And they make you feel bad about the people around you. And instead of you responding with placing an emotional or physical boundary to the relationship, like, hey, you don't talk to me like that. We're both partners in this relationship. You shouldn't open your mouth and say things like that to me. But because you're so emotional, you're not in a very good emotional state. Remember, you're experiencing some trauma. And so what would happen next, typically, is for such a person to isolate themselves from their other loved ones. That's a response from their part. Not really the narcissist forcing them to isolate. That's what people don't get. So you see how people blame them.
Naturally, the childhood trauma has already caused the non-narcissistic partner to withdraw a little bit into themselves.
Yes.
So then in trying to cope, they just stay further in their
coping.
They're
because they don't have healthy coping skills. And because this person is constantly in their space, they don't know how to cope.
So when I'm looking now at someone, what are the red flags I need to be looking out for? If I'm trying to get married now and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I have childhood trauma. What do I need to look out for in myself first? And then my partner, what do I need to look out for if I'm like, okay, this person is a narcissist? What are those red flags that would kind of sound off to me? Because most times we don't see the red flags.
Yeah, you're correct. All right, so let's start from myself, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so typically, people with low self-esteem show signs of they're not able to manage situations, stressful situations, emotional situations. They are unable to withstand peer pressure. People who tend to be targets are also people who do not have boundaries, who are typically pleasing in nature, want to please everybody.
Right. So
right.
You can see
some of those. Yes, you can see that they're just trying to survive. And there's some people who are just, they always evade situations. So for example, if they have a friend, there's been a very maybe intense disagreement and they don't want to talk about it. So instead of them to come and say, let's talk about it, let's address it, because they cannot go through that emotion again. They buried it. So they just constantly avoid the other person.
Okay.
So there's no opportunity for conflict resolution.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's someone that has a trauma that they haven't dealt with.
Precisely.
Okay.
So that's what you should. So when you're saying that you're not confrontational in nature, I don't mean aggressive, but I mean you're not confrontational in nature. You're not assertive. You're you take everything that comes. You have no boundaries firm boundaries put in place. You're not self-confident. You have imposter syndrome. So those are things. When you start having imposter syndrome, it means that you don't ever feel good enough. And the moment a narcissist can pinpoint that, oh, you're so good and you don't even know it. Oh yeah, they're going to keep putting you down to the point where you cannot be admired. So for them, it's not because they choose to punish you.
Right.
They want a situation where they are constantly admired. And for them to be constantly admired, now I'm talking about what you see in narcissists, right? So they want to be constantly admired. And so when they notice that you are appreciated or you're achieving in certain areas of your life, and at that point in time, somebody's admiring you, complimenting you for that, they can't handle it. They can't handle envy. They don't know how to manage the emotions of envy and jealousy. So they constantly try to bring the other person down. You understand? I have to be the one to be seen. And because it's typical in relationships for us to fight.
Yes.
We should have disagreements.
Good conflict resolution.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
But for them, they do not want to be seen in a bad light at all.
Yes.
So it means whatever is happening in their relationship has to be the other person's fault.
Always the other person's fault.
Precisely.
It's never their fault.
So that is why you would see them maybe talk to people around. You see, look at what she's doing. They always have to point it to the other person. Like, she's not doing her job. She's at fault. She's not smart. She's not confident. She's dirty. She's not sexy enough. She's not good enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and
the more they do that, what would typically happen is people are like, oh, you're really trying. How do you manage with her? And then they go, oh, what can I say? So they act like they're all that, they're special.
They're perfect.
You understand? That's why people say, how come they are so different at home and they're different outside? That's not because they try to pretend outside. Remember what I said at the beginning. What is driving them is what? Admiration,
right.
Attention. Right. So they live up to it, which means that some of these children will call daddy's boys, or mommy's boys. They end up that way because they are constantly being doted over, and it has to continue.
I actually have a story. Now that you said that issue of mommy's boy, I have a story. So I want us to take a quick break, and I'll come back and tell you my story about my cousin. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us on this particular episode. I hope you're enjoying it thus far. So I ended up saying before the break that I had a story to tell about a cousin because our guest mentioned the mommy's boy. So I stayed in America for about 11 years, thereabout, and I stayed with my aunt, my mom's younger sister. Now, I had a cousin that came to stay with us while, my aunt and I lived together. I remember that I would go to work, both of us, my aunt and I would go to work very early in the morning, and not come back till evening, sometimes 6, sometimes 7. I would have made food. When we come, we cook. If I come early, I cook. If my aunt comes early, she cooks. So, and usually I will cook and go in, get ready, change to eat and everything. And by the time I come back, this said cousin has already wiped out the best of the meal. And you're eating, because he's a guy, he's an older guy, so he has eaten the best of what is in the pot. Yes, I factored you into my cooking, but still, and you are at home all day, So he will finish eating and leave the plate, and then he will tell me that it's a woman's job to wash dishes, it's a woman's job to cook, and it's a woman's job to tend to the kitchen. And I was like, no, this is America. We don't do that here. This behavior that people brought from Nigeria, I don't bring it here, And he says, well, his mom did all of that for him. So why should he be obliged to do any such thing? And I was like, I went to work. I bought the food. I bought the groceries. I cooked the food. And now I have to wash your dish.
So
that became a huge issue. And I'm like, I feel sorry for the woman that is going to get married to you. I feel sorry. You know? And he tried his hardest best to kind of break me by saying I was not someone that grew up with respect. I wasn't well trained. I don't have manners. My parents did not do a good job to teach me how to speak to elders. You know, just always constantly trying to break me. Yeah. So now, would you say someone like that had those narcissistic tendencies?
I would say yes. Why do I say that? He has a level, you know, he feels very entitled. Yeah. When you feel entitled, very entitled, when you feel very important, you feel like, you know, the world should rotate around you, everybody should revolve around you. You're the best thing after bread and tea. you know, and they always just feel like if I've been treated special by one person all through childhood, then you should continue. And that's what happens really when it comes to people who have that narcissistic tendencies. Yes. Because they feel like, why are you here? You know, and that is why when a person who has an intimate relationship with someone who is a narcissist, when they begin to take back their power, so to speak, it takes the narcissist aback because they're like, what is she doing? It should be about me.
It seemed as if I was...
Yes, that's why I kept trying to break you, because see, male narcissists understand that women are very emotional in nature. And when I mean emotional, their emotions make them, basically. You know, including the power CEOs, the women CEOs we know. You all know that a lot of times these women are women that have gone through a lot and they've dissociated from their emotions. Not all of them, but some of them. And that's what drives them. Yeah. So when you see them and they're relating like, you know, very in a masculine manner, you're like, I love the power. But they've realized that you cannot be emotional all the time, which means women generally, we have to work on controlling and regulating our emotions. Right. Once a narcissist says that he cannot break you, he's using words, he's using actions, because they understand, they need you to be in a place where nobody's admiring your achieve or you have any achievements. So when people come into your circle, it's all about him. Everybody's appreciating him for being a kind husband, for being such an understanding husband, for achieving so much out there, you know. And so they love that. They love that. So
can a narcissist actually change?
Yes, they can.
They can.
But you see, I can see that look. And I know someone out there saying, no way. In fact, I've heard therapists say, no, narcissists can't change. But they can change. But it takes, first of all, an acceptance of who they are. Because, you know, when they begin to try to look at the big picture, which is very possible, by the way, they begin to understand that, you know what, I need to put in some effort. When they become self-aware, so you can see that self-awareness is for everybody, you know. When you go through personal development, leadership development, and then you begin to reflect on some of the things you do. If you're someone who reads a lot, you'll be like, I have these tendencies. That's self-awareness. And you're trying to work on them. Maybe from the work front or the home front, you're consciously making an effort. That's a good step in the right direction. And then when you also see that they are making an effort to see a therapist, individual therapist, there's going to be a couple therapists, of course, but individually trying to seek treatment to that. That's another step in the right direction.
What if they're not doing anything?
Oh, then they can't change.
They can't.
No, they can't. There's no need. No, I'm really serious. There's no campaign with a narcissist who is not making any effort to change, right? I'm saying that for those who are in a relationship, because you can step out of it if your mental health is constantly being affected and you've not been able to build yourself. Because you see, when you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you've discovered who they are, what you should then do at that particular point in time is begin to work on yourself. See, we hear of certain strategies or tactics that a therapist will tell you to use, you know, so that, you know, you can live with them. It can get you crazy in a way because you're constantly trying to fight them. But when you begin to work on yourself as a person, when you begin to build yourself up as a person, and you begin to improve on your confidence, the words they say just rolls over you like,
can't be bothered.
You know, and you become firm when you know, and you're assertive when you're communicating, and you place a boundary, and you're not reactive in nature. Because you see, what a narcissist wants is for people to think you're crazy, you're worthless, because when the thing is, when a woman goes through all of the rantings of a narcissist, at some point they explode. They've been imploding on the inside, but when they become broken, they begin to react. They seem mentally unstable.
Yeah.
And that's what they like. So they can say, you can see what I've been managing, who I have been managing for a very long time.
Yes, but you've been pushing her.
You've been breaking her.
Yes,
but that part is not seen. So when you begin to build up yourself on the inside, you become resilient. You begin to partake of a self-care routine.
Yes.
You're loving on yourself.
Yes.
You're placing boundaries gradually. They lose interest in you.
Yeah,
because it wasn't love in the first place. I hate to break it to someone there who thinks their spouse loves them. I am so sorry to say it wasn't love, as it were. It was the fact that you admired them so much. You looked up to them. You were there to be empathetic. You were there to say the nice words. And when you stop saying it, or when you're too broken to, they move to the next supply. And when they're unable to move to the next, yes. That's why I said I'm so sorry to say. I had to say that.
Your poor heart.
But again, at the end of the day, look, for every relationship, relationships get to a point where there are differences. The differences can be reconcilable, they can be irreconcilable. When they are reconcilable, that means the two people are coming together and saying, look, we need to deal with what is going on. Right. How can we make this work? Right. The relationship and future is the goal. So they go through, couple therapy, individual therapy, just to get themselves to the point where they're able to work things together. But the truth is, most times, narcissists don't get to that point. They'd rather leave everything and go somewhere else to ensure that they are being constantly fed. And so it's at that point, people need to understand that that is when the differences are irreconcilable. You don't need to pitch your tent there and remain there. Right. You can build yourself, build up your career, build up your value, build up your worth, and just be who you used to be before you met this person,
Yeah, so I think many of us just get to that place where the words keep breaking us.
Breaking, and then
you now all of a sudden remain there.
That's why therapist is needed, honestly.
So you would advise that anybody going through a tough marriage now and they see themselves married to someone like you have described, they need to start with themselves by going for therapy.
Yes.
Heal first.
Yes.
Understand what is broken.
Yes.
Mend yourself.
Yes.
And then you would know the next step.
Yes. But you see, sometimes some women are broken beyond, so there's nobody that's broken beyond repair, but they are so broken, they think there is no way forward. And at that point, what you may need to do is to separate from this person. And you see, again, with narcissists, you have to stylishly separate yourself, because you see, they hate rejection. They are not emotionally mature. So they cannot handle a lot of things. Anything that is not about them, they cannot handle. And so when you're separating, they're like, you're leaving me. I should be the one leaving you. You're nothing. Yeah. So that's just, you triggers them and all that. So that's why we say, if you're able to work on yourself, just gradually work on yourself, start focusing on yourself, realizing that the words they've been speaking to you all this while is false. I have to tell you that. They've told you you're worthless. They've told you you're not reasonable. You're not responsible. They've told you you're nothing. Nobody's going to love you. You're nothing outside. Nobody's going to appreciate you. You're crazy. You're mad. They've said all of these things to you, and you're at the point where you're thinking, this is true. And this is the part where you need to purge yourself of all of those words and begin to affirm yourself, because you need to get on the journey of healing so that you don't break down mentally and develop mental illness, okay? Right. It's going to continue with someone else, okay? They are getting tired of you because they like that when they're talking down on you, you're picking yourself up again.
They like it or they don't like it?
They like it. So that's the tricky part. They like it because if you're supporting them, you understand. So after they're done saying all sorts of things, breaking you down, they want you to get up the next minute and start catering to their needs.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And so when you're not doing that, Like they're like, what is going on with you?
And so it's like, on to the next.
Yeah. What they don't like is you achieving things and then people are admiring you when they are there. It's they can't handle it. They can't handle partnership.
Right.
They cannot handle partnership.
But this topic is so multifaceted.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's so deep, and a lot of us are actually facing it.
Yeah.
And Ms. Olabisi has taken a lot of time to study this and has counseled a lot of couples that are going through this challenge or disorder, that we call it. And I would really like to, borrow on her again and ask of her nicely. If she can come again, we could do like a live show.
That would be a good idea.
So if you know that you're in this position, if you know that you have questions, if you know, I would really, really like you to come on this. I'm going to put it on our social media platforms where you can come and talk to her directly and ask these questions and help you understand how to navigate better.
Yes.
This is a really deep issue and a lot of us are facing it in our various homes. Or we know someone that is facing it in their various homes. So I want us to end this. It's a lot.
Yeah,
and we would continue on a live show. Please watch out on all our social media platforms to know when we're going to go live on this and where you can come and speak directly to her with whatever questions and challenges you may have or be facing. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Look forward to seeing you same time next week. Take care and bye-bye.
Bye.
When I wanted